Good afternoon and welcome to this week's Halftime Talk. We're honored to be joined today by two distinguished speakers who are very much involved in the Fujairah ecosystem, and it's a pleasure to be focused this week on all things Fujairah, as it is the first year anniversary of the Fujairah newsletter, the New Silk Road weekly newsletter. And so thank you. We're joined today by Mr. Yusr Junaidy, who is the Managing Director of Horizon Terminals, and Mr. Martijn, who is the Business Development of Port of Fujairah. Yusr, perhaps we can kick off with you. And we're 6 months into what has been inevitably a somewhat turbulent period for the world and for economies in general, but also, you know, there are always some winners in difficult economic times, and storage and trading in the energy sector has done reasonably well this year. But all in all, looking as we are starting the fourth quarter, what is your takeaways, Yusr, the big takeaways from the last 6 months and the opportunity and the challenge of that within the context of Horizon Terminals and your Fujairah operations?
First of all, hi, Sean, and hello, Martijn. Yeah, you say it correctly. It's been a very turbulent past couple of months, I think, for the whole oil and gas industry. Maybe if we break it down in terms of the only part of the supply chain that has not been so shocked is probably the storage and the shipping segment, but the whole supply chain has been severely disrupted. We started off the beginning of the year with quite a lot of oversupply. Then along came the coronavirus and hit a lot of the producers pretty badly, caused a lot of demand erosion. So that was really a difficult time. And I think the first takeaway we take from that is that a lot of companies started focusing on operational resilience. We've invoked, like many other companies, crisis management. These things are usually there for a short period of time. Obviously, they're there for a much longer period now. So that's now become a norm. The second thing we would take away from this is that a lot of the companies have tried to rationalize their investments, and in light of not knowing what's going to happen in the next month or so, or when this pandemic will be over. So they've put a lot of projects on hold, rationalizing their capital investment. The last thing, which is a bit of a social change, I think that we see a lot of people becoming more and more aware of the social issues such as climate change, such as biodiversity, things like that. And I think maybe it's a function of us realizing, that we have time on our hands now to really consider these things. How such a small, microscopic, tiny virus could have really changed the whole world, and how small we really are in the big scheme of things. So I think that we've now started thinking about the bigger picture. So these are really the three main things that have hit me over the last couple of months.
When you think, Yusr, about the economic opportunity and you think about the last 6 months, clearly there was a big call on Fujairah storage. How did Fujairah, how did your business and your peer group perform? Did you wish you had more storage capacity? It seemed it was a big opportunity. The contango market delivered a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. We wished we had a bit more storage. It wasn't enough. Like I mentioned, it was already oversupply. Along came this, demand destruction out of nowhere so quickly, caused the prices to drop. Like you mentioned, it could only go up. So everyone was looking for storage. I think that it took us by surprise. And we could see a lot of the customers were looking for onshore and offshore storage all over the world. And Fujairah obviously has benefited from that because, there is quite a lot of players and a lot of storage that has been set up in Fujairah.
Martijn, the port of Fujairah in particular, within all of the infrastructure of Fujairah, has built capacity for future opportunity. And suddenly future opportunity in some ways came very quickly in the last 6 months. And in a lot of ways, you hear the word about accelerator, that COVID and all of its challenges has accelerated multiple things forward. I'm wondering, from the port of Fujairah's perspective, what you take away from the last 6 months?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Well, of course, the pandemic and the quick sudden drop of demand, as mentioned, of course, showed us, how far is the bottom, or how low can we go. I think it was, gave us the opportunity to see how much of an impact we as a port and as a Fujairah will see. And I have to say, it definitely we saw an impact. Mostly we saw that in April, but coming from record highs, started in 2019, and actually we continued that in Q1 with a record month in February.
When you say record what? Flows or
record throughput? Yeah,
throughput
across the jetties. So all the terminals in Voice. And also as well as Vopak, so as a joint Fujairah market, was a record in terms of throughput. So that was the trend. So indeed, the pandemic came as a shock, but we have to say we're pretty resilient. It was April we saw the dip. I think we went down 25 to 30% in throughput, but the next month in May already we started to pick up. So we had a very sharp, let's say, V recovery. And in August, September, we actually were back at our normal levels. That's where we left it basically in Q1, just before the pandemic hit us. So I think that shows that, Fujairah is well positioned and provide the right services to cater for this and come back online quickly after such a crisis. So I think this has to do mainly as well with our position. We're focusing very much on the east side of the world. Have our steady supply and flows into the GCC countries, Pakistan, India, of course, and it's our steady flow. So as soon as these markets started to get out of their lockdowns, immediately, basically the oil followed via the tanks here in Fujairah. So we are basically back where we left it in Q1 in a very short period of time. I think the second one was, of course, the bunkering. We thought maybe the bunker market would get a big hit. We are among the top 3 in the world when it comes to bunkering. Same story here, basically a very little impact. We are pretty steady. Don't say we are growing at the moment, but for the last couple of years, we have seen a very steady flow. And also, again, the pandemic did not hit that. So again, we showed resilience there. And maybe as a third point, of course, we saw a few companies getting into financial trouble. Of course, also some here in Fujairah. So of course that that makes you aware of okay, might there be others? Do we have to have a proper look on things? But I have to say, things are going quite smoothly. Of course, we also had a few projects lined up which did not proceed because of that. So that's of course disappointing. But others are still looking to invest in the market. So overall, I have to say, yes, of course, it's a very dramatic situation we're in, and the whole pandemic is continuing. But it looked almost, at least from the oil side of things here in the port, as things are just back to normal.
And is there anything that you would recognize was an opportunity you couldn't take because you hadn't done, or you weren't advanced enough, or the other way around, that you had done and so you were able to take advantage of?
Yeah, I think, of course, if there were been more tanks in the network, we could have seen more flows in and out. So we would have benefited from that. But of course, yeah, the tanks were. But
is that not, and Yusr, maybe you have a view on this, that the idea of more tanks, for many years, there was the sense of criticism or a sense of question, can Fujairah support having the amount of tankage that it does? And now we're finding, well, actually, there's moments when that opportunity is there. But is it sustainable, Yusr?
Well, I mean, I might shoot myself in the foot by saying this. I hope not, because we want things to get back to normal. This situation where there is demand that has dropped so substantially, has led to the low oil prices and obviously the demand for storage. So I'm hoping that we find a solution to this pandemic. I know it's going to take a bit of time, but this is cyclical as well. You have, this is an abnormal situation, but normally you will see contango and backwardation, and the demand will go up and go down.
Well, if you look back at this particular crisis, Yusr, I mean, crisis, pandemic, it has many words, but it started actually in March when there was the big sort of bust up in OPEC, when Saudi Arabia and Russia decided that they were going to take a kind of a market share aspiration, and with that flooded the market with oil. And so the contango market, yes, it came out of, obviously, from the COVID pandemic, but it was triggered a little bit earlier with this fallout of strategy, if you like, from the big oil producers in the world. And so contango markets can come from many places, ultimately, is the point. And it's being there and ready for that opportunity when it comes.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, there was already, non-agreement on production, and there was all this oversupply overhang over there. But, we've never seen, WTI in negative numbers, and we saw that. So it could only go up, right? So that's what pushed everyone to basically push oil, into tanks. And there was a scramble. There's still a lot of demand for it. And if things improve, and we hope they do, that will keep the contango sustained. It'll keep prices on the up, and hopefully will keep storage and Fujairah, in good shape for the next, year or so.
And when you look at the sort of profile of Fujairah up until now, and it has been very products focused. Of course, there's been some crude. There's a lot of crude to come with the ADNOC cavern. I'm just wondering, what was the profile of the last 6 months opportunity? Was it much more products than crude, or how did it play out?
You want me to take that?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was across the barrel, obviously. I think that there's a lot more potential for crude storage in Fujairah. I see that because the production is steady and the demand has fallen. So I think that that's something that Fujairah can build on, especially got the infrastructure to deal with that and export right now. And like you mentioned, there's more and more players coming into the market, and hopefully we'll export out of there. I think predominantly it was still products, but crude can have a bigger role. And I think that in future, I mean, we should be able to see LNG as well. And that's something that Fujairah, I believe, is well placed to benefit from, in the near and long term.
And is that a business area that Horizon would be interested in, the LNG side of things?
This is an area that we are interested in investing in and developing. So, we have a long time relationship with Fujairah. We were one of the first movers into there. So we'd like to develop on that, and hopefully, if we come across the right project.
I mean, they say for LNG to work as a bunkering fuel, it needs to have another purpose. It needs to be gas for power, or LNG needs to have another role within the ecosystem of Fujairah rather than just bunkering, or else it isn't really viable.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I think that Fujairah is growing, industry is growing, and I think the demand for gas is in the UAE, despite this pandemic, and COVID, is growing strong. So I think that there's a requirement for power, for energy, for gas, and you leverage off that, like you said, and you look to develop the bunker markets, hopefully.
Martijn, speaking of developments, I mean, obviously the sort of pathway that Fujairah has been on is to get increasingly more and more relevant as a global energy trading hub. I'm wondering, has this period, has this year accelerated that for Fujairah in any tangible ways?
No, I think you touched on the right one. When I said when we missed an opportunity, perhaps this year, it was specifically on the crude storage. Right, so we have the refined throughput and storage is pretty steady now for the last couple of years. So it's the crude where we see the opportunity. And yeah, unfortunately, we missed out on that. There were some crude tanks in Fujairah, but they not always could cater for it. Some terminals also lack the connection, of course, to the VLCC jetty. So a couple of terminals now started, to invest in that, to connect into the matrix manifold, to connect to the VLCC jetty, to build new tanks. BPJIC is among of those terminals that hopefully commission their new crude tanks by the end of this year or early next year. And so there we see the future. Obviously, very much driven also by ADNOC initiatives. You mentioned already the caverns, and the caverns are supposed to connect to the port as well. And if you are connected to the port, you basically you connect to all the other terminals. So that will.
You have the announcement by ADNOC just recently. The update on the Murban contract and the ICE exchange, right, the new year. That must have ramifications for Fujairah.
Absolutely, I think that's exciting to see that it was planned for this year, but they managed to get it even into Q1 now. So yeah, we also going to see how this is going to play out, how the trading will develop. Of course, ADNOC trading and ADNOC global trading are still relatively new. So, but they have clearly indicated, I think, among us last September at the conference in Fujairah, which you hosted, of course, that Fujairah is a key global hub for them to grow their trading and business. That includes.
Have you made that physical connection to the manifold and the ADNOC storage?
This is ongoing. Yeah, has not been finalized yet. So this is among the projects that we are developing at the moment. So if that happens, that will give ADNOC the flexibility, obviously, to trade it. But at the end, it's up to ADNOC, of course, how they want to trade their crude. But we are ready. We are ready to connect, make the connection, to expand the number of jetties. The Fujairah has the superstructure ready to expand from the current 9 oil berths, even up to 21. Of course, depending on the sizes, but we have it all in place. We can build a second VLCC jetty. We can expand our matrix manifold system. We can lay more lines, etc. We are all ready when the time comes, when ADNOC is ready.
Is the funding there for that? Is the capital to drive that?
That will be there, yeah. It will, because of course it will be based on the expected income. If ADNOC is ready and able to give us a forecast of what they are planning, we can build the business case around it. That's absolutely no issue.
I mean, the opportunity in crude, Yusr, is quite significant, particularly when one considers that Singapore seems to be getting out of the business of crude oil storage. And I'm wondering, one of the restrictions that we've always sort of faced in Fujairah, that has always, is a hurdle that always has to be overcome, is literally space, is square footage, is land. I'm wondering, how do you see those two things coexisting, the great opportunity for crude and the shortage of land?
I think the government of Fujairah has always been a great partner. They understand what the business needs. If they choose to make land available, there's ways to do it. Some more expensive than others, but there's ways to do it. I believe the crude opportunity is there, when it comes to cargo aggregation, blending, to get things on spec, and the growth that's coming in Asia. I think that, Fujairah can play a role. So I'm not too concerned. I know that there is a cost to it, but if the demand is strong enough, we've always had a great partner in the government of Fujairah, and they're very receptive to understanding the business needs.
What about, in terms of the jigsaw puzzle that makes Fujairah a potential global standard energy trading hub is a refinery. What is your view on that, Yusr? Is that a piece of the jigsaw puzzle you think is important for the evolution of Fujairah?
Well, yeah, I mean, it would help to have production of products close by. But then again, there's many refineries not that far away from Fujairah. Fujairah's got the location and the infrastructure, the clear laws, okay, that are not only covering Fujairah, but the whole of the UAE when it comes to customs, import, export. So I think that, they're well placed. It would just help the fact that all the infrastructure in Fujairah is interconnected, allows for easy trade, transfer of products from one terminal to the next. So all of that has been well thought of by the port, and by the government. So I think that it would help, but they're already well positioned.
Martin, another piece of the jigsaw puzzle, perhaps less tangible, is the transparency of a marketplace in the context of the creation of an energy trading hub, and of course now with the Murban contract, data and the ability to see transparently what the market activity is in Fujairah is quite important. I'm wondering, what is your outlook for that? We have the weekly inventory numbers on the products storage. I'm wondering, is there any plans for anything more?
Yeah, good that you asked, Sean. We are indeed currently studying this to see, what else can we or would we like to share with the market, either on a weekly or monthly basis. So we're looking into the bunker volume, for example, but perhaps also some other commodities to share. This is definitely not concluded yet, but we were working on it in the coming weeks with our partners to see indeed if we can add on to the weekly inventory numbers that we already published for a couple of years now, and to create more transparency. So that's absolutely something we are looking at the moment, Sean.
I mean, the idea that you would be able to put forward bunkering numbers, etc., particularly, it takes me to my next question in terms of this. Before all things COVID happened, this was the year of IMO 2020, and I'm wondering if one was to cut that, just look at it by itself, how has it turned out for Fujairah? This what seemed a year ago for everybody to be a big challenge ahead. How has it worked out?
I think very well. I think we were always very confident that we were, well prepared and well placed to handle this. We were challenged quite a bit last year on if we were ready or not, and what about this and what about that. But as we actually expected, it worked out very well, very smooth transition. So what we did in Fujairah on the port side, we dedicated four bunker berths specifically for low sulfur fuel oil and MGO on the white side. So we clearly segregated the flows, high sulfur and low sulfur. We still are able to load high sulfur, but we'll do that on separate berths. Anyway, 80+% that we are loading is low sulfur. So it's dedicated, so no contamination, no quality issues. On the terminal side, well, in Fujairah, most of the terminals are relatively new, well equipped. So you saw, of course, big players do their blending, and the terminals have these facilities. On top of that, and definitely, have been very supporting, obviously, is having two producers in the form of Uniper with their topping refinery as well as the Vitol refinery, producing probably around 500,000 metric ton a month. So a big chunk of the market demand. So all these things together, I think it worked out very well. Of course, the terminals benefited from the storage positions. Many traders took quite a bit of capacity already as of last year, but throughout this year. So I have to say it was a very smooth implementation, John.
Did the port find itself, one of the questions at the beginning of the year was, will the port be called upon to be a policeman? How has that sort of regulatory function worked out?
No, I think we always mentioned that we will not have that kind of role. It's with the RTA to to do regular spot checks if they feel needed. They do the vessel inspection. So part of the vessel inspection will be to see if the ships use compliant fuel. But we have no cases at all. We have no suspects or any of it. And like I said, if you just purely look at the numbers, you know, what's the breakdown, high sulfur, low sulfur, it is basically 85% low sulfur, so very much in line with the vessels that calling the anchorage for bunker. So we are not concerned at all. And like I said, we are not in a police role, and we don't need to, because the market has shown to regulate itself.
Okay. Yusr, your own analysis on the opportunity that and the challenge of the IMO 2020 year, which of course is an important piece because it connects Fujairah with other parts of the world in the sense that ships looking for bunkering can obviously go many places, and it connects, obviously keeps Fujairah's position in the world if it's offering the compliant fuel. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, how has it gone and what opportunity has it presented?
I mean, I think what Martijn said covered a lot of that. The port has done a lot of operational changes to be ready. We've already seen, in terms of our clients, already bringing in low sulfur fuel oil from last year. So the rates and, let's say, the occupancy in Fujairah was already improving from the second half of 19, and that's basically to be ready for the IMO. So I think that it's not easy to change shipping routes. So the location will always be there. You just have to have the product. So I think a lot of the traders were ready, a lot of the suppliers were ready. And the port just helped by setting things up. So honestly, really well done for them.
From the point of view of the opportunity that it presents vis-a-vis keeping the shipping routes and the services of Fujairah, what else would you add to that from the point of view, obviously low sulfur fuel, there's multitudes of different marine services. Are there other things that need to be looked at adding to the bouquet of offerings from a global standard port and ecosystem?
Yeah, we keep forgetting that Fujairah has spent a lot of time, developing piece by piece. So you've got, for instance, our shareholder, the Emirates National Oil Company, have a plant over there that produces lubricants, for the shipping industry. Like I mentioned, I believe that a lot of the companies have already stocked up, and there's also production, like Martijn mentioned, of low sulfur fuel oil. So a lot of they're pretty well stocked up. The only thing that I would add on to that is that there's going to be growth, in demand as certain regions become more and more strict in terms of the emissions for LNG. So and as ship owners start looking at that as an alternative fuel in the years to come, that's something I believe that Fujairah has to find a way to develop that into their strategy to make it available so that they can maintain their position as a global bunkering hub.
What about something as kind of sort of over the horizon that's also hydrogen is something that is getting a lot of attention in the last year or so? Do you think that could be another piece of the puzzle, like LNG?
Difficult for me to answer because that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah. But I suppose it's another new fuel. What I wanted to ask you, Yusr, was in context of operations in Fujairah, we've seen in the last month or so, it's a rather significant drawdown on the inventories. Wondering what's the current activity in Fujairah, generally speaking, from the point of view of storage volumes and the outlook for that?
It's been strong. There has been a pickup. Some economies have opened up. For good or for worse. I mean, they've made the decision that they want to open up. So that's caused a bit more consumption. We still see a very big weakness on the aviation sector. but and that's global. But I think that some markets have seen some opening up, especially in Asia. So there's more throughput.
There's a lot of unused capacity in Fujairah at the moment.
It's unused, but it's pretty full. I mean, Fujairah published their numbers, and you can see the occupancy. It's quite well occupied. So throughput's obviously
the capacity is booked, even if it's not being utilized.
Absolutely, yeah, it's booked, and people want that position. They want that security because there's a bit of volatility in the market, and they want to be positioned for that.
Martijn, from the point of view of that capacity, and we talked about at the beginning, I wish I had more capacity because given the demand in the last 6 months. But looking forward, where do you think the priorities are from the point of view of Fujairah government and the institutions that have to invest the money? Is it to encourage more tankage? Because, in Singapore, they're getting rid of tanks because they want to use the valuable land for more high-yielding opportunities. I'm wondering what's the perspective in Fujairah?
Oh, absolutely, and here as well, you touched on land. Obviously, we are surrounded by mountains, but Fujairah government have moved a few mountains before, and as we speak, a big land is being reclaimed north of us, basically using the material that's coming out of the caverns that being made for ADNOC. So big reclamation is going on. But at the same time, you're right. We will not, the Fujairah community, we will not just limitless or unlimited, basically expand the number of tanks, right? I think we will look at existing customers, existing terminals who might have expansion plans. I think that we are definitely in favor to support them to grow their business. Any newcomer, I think definitely will have a serious due diligence to see what is the added value they will bring to Fujairah. So there will definitely not be an unlimited build of new storage capacity. I think there's room, especially around the crude. I think, but for refined products, that will mean you have to bring in a complete new market or new players, and then it will make sense. But for, let's say, the market that we serve nowadays, which is the Gulf region, it is Eastern Africa, and this Indian subcontinent, right? Those are our main markets. I think they are well served out of Fujairah at the moment. Again,
what about competition? I mean, from the point of view of times like this, IMO 2020, of course, and other challenges, there are other ports emerging in the region, and flows are changing. China is investing heavily into Pakistan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We keep an eye on that. But I think as long as we keep doing what we're doing and keep improving the services, I think we always will stay ahead. I think Yusr mentioned as well, the value that he sees is the connectivity. The matrix manifold that the port has built enables the traders to sell and buy from each other via pipelines, ITTs. Instead of having to charter a vessel to sell and bring from one terminal to the other. That's our huge cost saving. So I think this is one of the key selling points for us, differentiate us from the competition. And of course the scale, commercial storage is getting close to 10 million cubes. Then you have, let's say, the more captive storage on top of that. You've got ADNOC coming in, not just physically with the crude, but also the trading teams already. They will use Fujairah to trade, and we know ADNOC's partners are keen to follow them. So, if that momentum really starts to unravel in the coming years, I think it will be difficult for the competition to copy that.
Yusr, on that final point, obviously ADNOC increasingly engaging in Fujairah, and now the Murban contract, etc. Aramco Trading has been in Fujairah now for over a year. What does that mean? What kind of a game changer is that from your perspective? Obviously, you're with your major partner, ENOC, Emirates National Oil Company. You've been in Fujairah a while. What does the arrival of these other big national players into your ecosystem there, do you think, mean? What is the opportunity that it presents for existing residents in the Fujairah system?
I think it's very positive that everyone is really seeing the value, of having a base out of Fujairah. I think it'll make other competitors to Fujairah think twice, because it's not easy as well to relocate. At the same time, I would mention that Fujairah has to keep looking at remaining not only operationally resilient, but they have to be also competitive in terms of the cost side of it, to keep all these players. So you can attract everyone, you can keep them there, only if you make the effort to keep the costs reasonable and within the market. So
I mean, these are big actors. Do they sort of crowd out the space for smaller actors, or how do you see the coexistence?
There's ample room for coexistence. I mean, Martijn mentioned that they're near 10 million cubes and they're serving a specific market. That market geography that he mentioned is well supplied. There is room for others to come in. You don't just keep adding volume on top of volume, right? So people displace others, and I think that well stocked, and I think that it's comfortable for all the players right now. And hopefully we'll see some more growth in terms of the macro numbers that will allow the volumes themselves to grow, not just people to displace others.
And when you look at that connectivity and from a point of view of geographic region it serves, I mean, from Horizon Terminal's point of view, what connectivity is critical for your business? Is it East Africa? Is it India, Pakistan? Or what is the connectivity market-wise of relevance to your business in particular?
And I think the clients are probably moving product, into East Africa, Red Sea. There's constant imbalances, in the GCC. So you will see some small cargoes going back and forth. But predominantly, I mean, you've got product going into, the Indian subcontinent and the other way as well sometimes. And Fujairah being placed right in between Africa and the Indian subcontinent is using that advantage. So I can't see us expanding the geography more, because you're limited by the cost of freight and moving product around. And there's also always alternative producers that surround you.
Yeah. Just to finish off, Martijn, with the hardest question for last, maybe, but maybe not. We've had Gulf Petrochem make a lot of headlines over the last month or two in terms of their bankruptcy. And, a year ago we had Aegean, or whatever, more longer than that. I wonder, how do you see those events? What do they mean for Fujairah and its ecosystem?
It's obviously a temporary disruption. Of course, it's negative news. You don't want to see it, of course, in general. But those will be resolved. I mean,
Singapore has had some pretty bad headlines itself in the last few months in the context of fraudulent activities in trading and so forth.
Yeah, no, I think that was one of my opening points when I said, takeaways is indeed those company or in financial trouble, and you have an extra look on those. But for us, of course, this terminal is currently not in use, so that's unfortunate. That might limited the number of throughput for us. So yes, we will temporarily lose out on it. At the same time, we know there are, as you can read in the news, GP wants to sell the terminal, and we know there are many parties interested. So this is a matter of time that somebody else will buy the terminal and start operations again. So it is a temporary disruption.
Yeah, I've heard actually in the market that it could be quite competitive for those looking to take over Gulf Petrochem's assets, given some of the context we talked about earlier in terms of, storage, land availability, and so forth.
Yeah,
I'd like to thank you both for Yusr Al Junaidy of Horizon Terminals. Thank you for participating in this special on Fujairah for the first anniversary of the Fujairah newsletter. And Martijn from the Port of Fujairah, thank you so much for joining us on Halftime Talk this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.